It is time for all of the Gold Derby editors to come to Jesus and explain your predictions if they're a little borderline here. And Marcus, I'm calling on you, buddy. If Denzel Washington was going to show himself as a more formidable contender for Best Actor with Fences, I think we would have seen maybe him emerge at the Globes. He didn't. So why do you have Denzel at number one?
You know, a wise man once told me that to win at the Oscars, you have to have the most of something. The most visual effects wins visual effects. The most makeup wins makeup. I'm talking about Tom O'Neill, for those of you that don't know.
Right.
Who gives the most acting?
I like that.
Easily Denzel Washington. He acts, you know, he acts leaps and bounds over Casey Affleck, who is the presumed front runner. Casey's great in his movie, don't get me wrong, but it's very subtle. Subtle doesn't usually win Oscars. And also look at, you know, does Casey have maybe a PR problem going on? When he's behind a microphone at an award show, it's almost like he's in bed. Maybe he's phoning in from bed. He doesn't have the, I don't know, the
spark, the energy.
Something that
he's not helping himself on any of these stages. That's for sure.
Right, and Denzel is just absolutely beloved. He did get snubbed at BAFTA, which is big, but hey, he won Training Day, Best Actor for Training Day, without getting.
But that was an anti-Russell Crowe thing that year, where Russell Crowe was.
It still counts.
But you didn't get it.
I know.
You did not get in at BAFTA that year.
Right.
Oh, interesting. God, the fact that you know that, Chris, is really impressive.
Well, here's the thing we were talking about when you were going on your meeting. He's never had a BAFTA nomination.
Oh, okay.
Denzel Washington.
6 Oscar nominations and not a single, and 2 Oscar wins, and none of those times he got in at BAFTA. There were a couple of scheduling issues. There were a couple of times where the release dates in the UK were different, so his films didn't come out until the following year. But you know, this year we know that Francis was eligible, obviously, because Viola got in. But yeah, it is still kind of unusual how, you know, this you know, you'd think he would have gotten in at least once out of 6.
You know, the Brits are idiots. They lost an empire, for God's sake. Come on.
What, Tom? What about if Denzel wins at SAG? Will you switch?
Oh, well, then yeah, then he's then we see the kind of Eddie Redmayne thing that took off.
Right.
And
I believe I think Paramount, you know those folks, Tom, they're very smart. They're already, I feel like, going to get the word out. Denzel's never won a SAG award. Never won a SAG award. Now, some of his best performances, Glory, Malcolm X, were before before the SAG awards even existed. So there are some reasons, but remember the last year that narrative broke out about he was winning everywhere, but Leo had never won at SAG until last year. So those kind of narratives come about sometime, and that could help. It could also turn out that they give it to Casey for individual, and they give Fences the ensemble, which would give Denzel an award. So,
all right, Chris, you are a betting man. I'm a betting man. We're at a cyber racetrack. Give me a percentage balance if you think of Denzel actually winning.
With or without the SAG win?
I don't know. You answer it any way you want.
Well, not knowing what he does at SAG, I think it's tighter than people think. I think Casey's not helping himself on these stages. He's hardly doing any interviews. There's some things surfacing from the past and all that kind of stuff. You know, Paramount's playing that up. Paramount has Fences. So probably like 55-45 Casey. It's close. I don't think the other 3 men are going to have to settle for a nomination. I think it's those 2.
If I was an Oscar voter, I would just vote for Andrew Garfield. He gave not 1 but 2 amazing lead performances this year. I can't believe he's so far behind in our odds.
Good point. But let's point out that if Denzel does this, he enters the pantheon of the most awarded male actors at the Oscars. And the other 3 gentlemen who have also won 3 include, of course, Daniel Day-Lewis, Jack Nicholson, and Walter Brennan, of all people. I think that something in Denzel's favor, and I do agree with you. I think that was very well stated too. Both of you, Marcus talking about is the understatement of Casey and your kind of odd spread, Chris, for Denzel. And that is the thing is that it really makes it's kind of like Denzel's secret weapon is you see him at events here. I mean, if I'm about 3 blocks walk from Spago Restaurant in Beverly Hills here. He shows up at these events. He does these things. He shakes every hand, and I think he cares. One of the most fun things I enjoyed about the Golden Globes was all the audience shot pictures they had of Denzel and him making faces. You can see how emotionally involved he is with everything happening on the stage. He just cared, and he was like a big little boy. It was adorable to see. Now he's not been very good with his speeches, and there was a lot of criticism last year of his Cecil B. DeMille Award acceptance speech, etc. But I don't think people remember that stuff. I think the Globes had a different agenda, and I think there's just a lot of just love and enormous. Denzel just isn't another actor. He is a Daniel Day-Lewis. He is a Jack Nicholson. He is one of those gods of Hollywood, and so, and that performance is magnificent and brilliant. But Daniel, help me here. Why is Fences underperforming everywhere? No Best Picture nomination at the Globes. Denzel wasn't nominated for directing. The film is underperforming given the fact that it's a Pulitzer Prize-winning drama, stage with it's an immortal piece of American literature that is beautifully rendered here. Daniel, why isn't it registering more?
I think in a weird way, that very reason. It's the nature of this play and this story. It's very talky. It's not like, even if you're going to open it up for film, which they do, you can't really open it up, to a dramatic extent. So scenes really come down to actors sitting next to each other and talking, and so I think it comes across as a little stagey to some people. I don't think it really needs the embellishment, because I think the writing is outstanding and the acting is outstanding and the characters are outstanding. But in that way, it kind of reminds me of a few years ago, Doubt, which was an acting contender, a writing contender, and it just never really materialized anywhere else. I think that's kind of what's happening here.
No, I think Doubt was overrated. It's not offenses, and this whole stagey thing. That's what everybody goes to, the whole stagey thing with Fences. If anybody had listened to that complaint about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf or The Lion in Winter, neither one of those movies would be the masterpieces they are today. I watched The Lion in Winter again the other day. And as a matter of fact, if you looked at my Facebook profile picture, I put Katharine Hepburn up there. I was again so moved by that what I think is one of the greatest performances in the history of film.
Tom, can I throw in one thing more about Denzel? The only negative that I could come up with, you talk about winking devils. He's a bad guy in this. I mean, he's not a good guy, and he's not a winking devil. The audience does not come away liking him.
Right. I think we had that conversation after we left. I said, I don't know if this character is someone that they can kind of rally behind.
But he does emote. He emotes all over the screen and has these long, dialogues and monologues, and I mean, he chews the scenery. And then Casey doesn't have that opportunity. Although Casey does have a couple of really emotional moments. Let's not say that he's totally dry.
Can anybody else win?
No.
I don't know, but I wanted to ask all of you. It's these 5 men, right? It's the same 5 men getting in everywhere. Viggo, Andrew, Casey, Denzel, and who am I leaving out?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Nobody else can get into that group, right?
It would be a big shocker.
I don't think so at this point. I was holding out hope for a while for Joel Edgerton for Loving, but then BAFTA and Viggo Mortensen is still putting on that pressure, and it's directly hurting Joel Edgerton. So I think this is our 5. I mean, there's always room for a huge upset, like a Jake Gyllenhaal for Nocturnal Animals. He just got in at BAFTA, and they kind of owe him after Nightcrawler.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something after he got in at every award show last year and didn't get nominated? If he jumped into the race this year when nobody's predicting him.
But it would have to be a surprise. It would have to be. It would be the biggest surprise since Bradley Cooper kind of jumped in at the last minute for American Sniper.
Okay, let's switch to Best Actress, and let me throw out a really crazy idea. All right? And tell me if you think this scenario could work. Talk about the possibility of Denzel becoming tied for the most wins for male actors. Can Meryl Streep do this? Meryl Streep hit the ball so far out of the park at the Golden Globes. It was a wow moment, of course. It was Hollywood, liberal Hollywood, firebrand, fighting for justice and all of that, like we applaud. I don't think it's an intrusion of politics like Richard Gere telling China to get out of Tibet, as he famously did at the Oscars, and made everybody uncomfortable. There are moments like that that don't work, but I think, of course, most people would agree that Meryl's moment at the Globes works. I put her into, I changed my Best Actress predictions last night, and I put Meryl in there. I forget who I threw out. Thinking, selfishly, if I were a voter, I might be tempted, if she gets in, as this is my FU to Washington, D.C. and Donald Trump, if you are so inclined. Marcus, you're laughing. Do you think there's any chance of that? Is this the person Hollywood rallies around to take down Mr. Trump?
100% yes. And I'm looking at our experts' odds right now. Some of these experts haven't updated in a while because they have her in 7th place. That's too low. She's getting in. She's getting a nomination for Best Actress. Can she win after that Golden Globe speech? I say it could happen, especially because you have 2 frontrunners. You have Natalie Portman and you have Emma Stone.
And you have 3 frontrunners. You've got to include Isabelle Huppert in there, right? Huppert.
That's true. If you have 3 frontrunners, that means the vote is going to split. So you have maybe Meryl's 4th, but she all of a sudden she gets the win because all the other votes are spread out to like sand.
And of course, the Oscar record for actresses is held by Katharine Hepburn at 4. Meryl has 3 already. We know she's going to win another one someday. She's going to tie or surpass that Hepburn record, as she's done already on the nomination side, right, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm a little more skeptical about whether she can win. I do think that since then, and especially after BAFTA, she got in there too. She got in Globes, BAFTA, SAG. I think she's in for a nomination, and I have her in 3rd place. And I think that's what the speech did for her. It secured her that 20th nomination, that historic nomination. I'm not sure yet that it's going to be enough to overtake the other 2. Actually, I think Natalie Portman's loss at the Golden Globes is really good news for Meryl Streep. I don't know how much that actually helps Isabelle Huppert. I don't really think she's a contender to win at the Oscars. But then Emma Stone in La La Land, she's a vulnerable frontrunner if she's the frontrunner with Natalie Portman, because she couldn't even win Critics' Choice when it swept there. But
Natalie's won nothing since then, really. She's not. Here's the problem. Let's talk about this. This Best Actress situation is so fascinating. Natalie's stock seems to be falling more and more. Jackie is underperforming everywhere. I'm shocked. What I love about the predictions, specifically among us editors here, is that we have Jackie showing up more in the Oscar nominations. That we'll see it happen there. I'm keeping Natalie Portman at number 1. And here's how I look at the Best Actress race going on. Now, and I've got to be careful here because I'm rooting for Jackie shamelessly, as I rooted for Sweeney Todd and Dreamgirls, and we all know how those fared at the Oscars. And I'm too emotionally involved in this to be rational, so I admit that I'm irrational about it. And I'm just an unhinged fan of that movie and that performance, so I'm clouded here. But here's how I've rationalized my prediction. And that is Emma Stone's going to win SAG. I'm now convinced of it, because not just the whole business of, she's an actress going on auditions and it's actors voting on this actors award. I think it's the only it's all this vote that the love that's out there among the awards. That's where you put it, since La La is not up for SAG Ensemble. Mm-hmm. So that explains a lot of if she wins. There are two good reasons she wins. Now, one of those two reasons didn't help Michael Keaton, of course, with Birdman, because here was a case of where he was an actor in a stage play in a movie, and Eddie Redmayne still famously beat him there. But I think that if Emma wins SAG, and Chris, I'm coming to you. If Emma wins SAG, what are the hopes of Natalie winning the Oscar?
Whoever wins SAG is going to win the Oscar.
No, not necessarily.
I think so. Emma's giving great speeches. She's lovable. She's an Oscar frontrunner. It just feels right. But I just was looking up something because I wanted to remind myself. It's not out of the realm that Meryl wins SAG.
Yes. Wow.
Now that I'm thinking about it, she's had almost as many nominations there as she's had at the Oscars. Of course, they didn't start until the 94 film season. She's only won one SAG for a film, and that was Doubt. So she's not over rewarded there. She also won for Angels in America for TV, but that's not feature film. After that speech and the fact that SAG voters now have their ballots and they're voting for winners, it's not out of the realm. And SAG, above all other groups, has rewarded, like veteran actors that didn't even go on to win the Oscar. I'm thinking of like Ruby Dee and Christopher Walken and several others that won there. Who was that one?
Idris Elba won last year. He wasn't even nominated at the Oscar.
Right. So that's not out of the realm. I mean, that could really throw a wrench. Do you think Emma Stone was sitting at her table listening to Meryl give that speech going, oh, no. She's taking all of my thunder away.
On the flip side of that, Emma really is this year's Jean Dujardin. The minute we saw La La made analogies to the artist, and it certainly has followed the same trajectory through the awards derby season, where it went up from the beginning and it stayed there like the artist did. And then what happened, of course, at the Golden Globes, that's where we saw Jean Dujardin become a formidable contender for an acting award, and then he went on to win at the Oscars for a role that isn't very emotionally flashy. It was just kind of a nice la la la, happy nice role. And it was enough, though, that sweep factor for the artist to take Jean Dujardin along for the ride. So my one worry about my Natalie campaign, and if Oscar voters, if you're listening to this, vote for her, is that Emma may just be invincible because she is this year's Jean Dujardin, but with talent.
But look at what Meryl and Natalie are doing. They change their voices, they change their looks, they're wearing the makeup, they're wearing the wigs. And Emma Stone, like you always say, Tom, if you play essentially yourself, you usually don't win.
I love that. That's a real insight. Wow.
But there's also the factor, I mean, in addition to her potentially Dujardinning, which I'm coining that now.
I love it.
In addition to that, in addition to being in the Oscar frontrunner for Best Picture, and Gosling isn't going to win Best Actor, so if they're going to give it an acting award, it's got to be her. She also fits their mold for Best Actress. Like they go with these 20-something ingenues. Your Gwyneth Paltrow, Brie Larson last year, even Natalie Portman when she won a few years ago, she was, I believe, in her late 20s. Reese Witherspoon, it really fits that kind of mold. Reese Witherspoon's actually another good example. She sings in Walk the Line, and it wasn't the flashiest performance in that category either. That would have been Felicity Huffman in Transamerica, and so. So there are a lot of parallels to other previous winners and precedent that, after I had predicted Natalie would go all the way after, starting with that Critics' Choice win. After Natalie lost the Golden Globe, I think I started to move back to Emma Stone, thinking she kind of fits, where they might be going with this.
Another thing she's got going for her, Tom, you always talk about some of these New York-based people just don't have the ability to, meet and see all of the voters like the LA-based people, and Emma's working it. I mean, she's appearing at every gas station opening, and I think she's offered to clean a few voters' homes, and she's babysitting, and almost every year we see at least one of the four, ultimately the four winners, doing that where they're just doing every possible scenario, just trying to keep their name out there and keep everybody happy.
What did you find when you interviewed her, Chris?
What did I think of her?
Yeah, I mean, was she relaxed and into it and
quite relaxed? And it was a day. It followed 2 days where they did all the 4-minute, just one after another, and then we had a third day where I went over, and it was just strictly for awards websites, awards coverage, and the Hollywood Foreign Press. And she was doing more like 10 to 15-minute interviews, and very comfortable, just very, very charming.
It's going to be such a close vote for the winner that, Natalie Portman, have your baby now so that that baby can vote for you, because that one vote may be the difference.
Well, this is one of those cases where I think the race is close now. It could either stay confusing, sort of like Best Supporting Actor did last year. A different person was winning everywhere, or we could see when SAG decides and when BAFTA decides that, oh no, it's really just like if Emma Stone wins both of those, then all of a sudden she's won the Golden Globe, SAG, BAFTA. It's like if she hasn't lost since Critics' Choice, then it'd almost be like, well, she's solid as the front.
Oscar voters like to join a winning team if they can determine if there is a winning, a team that a person that's winning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I am a SAG voter because I was a member of AFTRA, because I do so much TV stuff behind the camera and in front of the camera. And when the merger, I was pushed into SAG, and then now I'm suddenly a voter. Yesterday, I got the Jackie screener, the DVD, about 4 or 5 days through SAG. 4 or 5 days ago, I got the La La Land, and we got Fences, we meaning the voters. I'm trying to get a good breakdown of, we all get so many screeners, I'm not sure which ones were SAG and which one was else, but I was impressed that the Jackie screener went out. I'm an old bag, and I've been around. I was 7 years old when Kennedy was killed. Yes, do the math, I'm 62 years old. And I was... I'm of the perfect demo of the Academy. North of 60, a person in the media, and I just don't think you young kids understand what Jackie is and who she was. She only gave a couple interviews in her whole life, and she was this great mysterious icon who was only 33 or 34 when Jack was killed. And so this movie just reaches you on so many levels that it's hard to explain to people who didn't live through this in history. So I think that this is a wild card that we have to take very seriously at the Oscars, because, is there going to be a Mark Rylance upset somewhere? And if so, where is it going to come?
Well, let me ask all of you a quick question. Like we said on the men, is the five pretty set? Is it Emma, Natalie, Amy, Meryl, and Isabel?
I think so. I there might still be like a really ghost of a chance for either Ruth Negga or Annette Bening, but they've fallen off so much at this point that it would be hard to make a case for them at this point.
It's a bigger stretch, though, because you have those two. You've got Taraji. I mean, there's people in the forums that are convinced that Hidden Figures is hitting at the perfect moment, and Taraji's still going to get in. And then Emily Blunt. What do we make of her? SAG and BAFTA.
Yeah, she's those are the two that really count if you consider that those are the two industry awards, and where we're looking at the Oscars are an industry event. So now suddenly Emily Blunt is looking serious, and the film wasn't very well received, but I just published an article by Sam Ekman, who is going over this. I mean, The Lovely Bones wasn't well received, and Stanley Tucci got in. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close was nominated for Best Picture, even though it wasn't well received. So every once in a while, you get this one performance. Even Meryl Streep in The Iron Lady, not a lot of people would consider The Iron Lady a great film, or a lot of critics didn't even consider it a good one, but she still won for it. So sometimes if you have that right showcase performance, and Emily Blunt, I think, is at the right place in her career where she's considered due at least a nomination at this point. I'd actually say I might even put her in 6th place at this point.
Is there any possibility at all to throw a wrench in this whole discussion that the voters just throw out the consensus and put Viola in lead? If that happens, wow, I don't know what to pick.
Tom, do you know if SAG members got Hidden Figures?
If SAG members did, that's a good question. 2 of the 3 SAG DVDs that I've received are marked SAG, so it was easy. And so I've emailed a few other members who I know who are only in SAG, and our friend Paul has a couple friends in New York who only are members of SAG, and so we're trying to focus this. Now, keep in mind that if you're a voter, you get the digital downlinks from iTunes and even through the SAG site, where you could watch it online, download it on your tablet. You could do all kinds of things. So and more people are comfortable doing that. A few years ago, when studios would say, "Oh, well, we don't have to send out these very costly DVDs then to 150,000 SAG members," and remember, they have to be watermarked, which means they have to be tagged to your name, so that if it leaks out, they know that it was Daniel Montgomery's fault and his screen that got away. Then they have to send them to you special delivery. This isn't like the Crash days. And remember, that was the groundbreaker. That changed everything back in the Brokeback Mountain days, which was they sent out DVD en masse across Hollywood to every guild over and over and over. One guild members told me, "I've got 6 Crash DVDs." And they could do that because it wasn't watermarked. You could do that because you could send it regular mail. The movie had come out the previous summer, so there was like that embargo thing was off of it, and that's a factor. But I don't know how that will play this year. But basically, you can see all the movies online and stream, so maybe that's not a factor. But look, back to Annette Bening. Stop writing her off. She's a governor of the Academy. Yeah. She's Annette Bening, for God's sake. 4-time past nominee. Yes, she's overdue. So
that hasn't helped Tom Hanks.
No, but Tom Hanks has a cranky side to him that even he admits. Mm-hmm. Remember, he's also Tom Hanks has a movie every year. How often does Annette get back out there with a new kind of vehicle?
So who does Annette what slot does she take?
I don't know.
Dear Amy Adams?
I think she would actually take Isabelle Huppert. I mean, Huppert is the one who was missed. She missed at SAG, and that was a big one. Amy, even though Arrival,
eligible to SAG, I don't think.
Wasn't she?
Isabel did get snubbed at SAG. She was not on the ballot for BAFTA. It did not release in England.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's where it was. She was on the ballot for BAFTA, right?
So even though Arrival isn't this, and this performance isn't the typical kind of performance we would think would be a strong contender, Amy Adams really hasn't missed. So I think if someone gets dropped out at that bottom slot at this point, I think it would probably be Huppert.
But she did herself a great favor in her speech on Sunday as well, because she was just so giddy and happy and excited, and I think that certainly had to go over well with voters.
And that was a surprise, and that was what was great about that was because this character and a lot of her like on-screen personas are really kind of cold and chilly and distant. So to see her that warm and gracious and appreciative is really a side of her that not a lot of people who have gotten to know her kind of darker roles on screen have really gotten to appreciate. So yeah, that speech definitely was a great moment for her.
Any final thoughts here?
Are we going to talk about supporting real fast?
No, we're going to that's this whole separate slugfest we'll do tomorrow or another day. Let's wrap it up here. Anybody have any final thoughts on these lead acting roles?
Watch out for Denzel.
Watch out for Natalie. I'm not giving up I'm going to hold on to Natalie all the way through. I don't care when Emma wins SAG. I don't care that I'm the only one on that board. And I'm not just doing this because I adore the film so much and the rest of it. I think that there is this personal connection between the demographic of the Academy and that moment in history and this great performance, the transformative thing that Marcus is talking about, all of that stuff is a very big factor here in a race. As we said, that we've got 4 strong contenders, 4 within shot of winning here in a very tight race. That said, we'll all change our minds next week when we do this again. So at least now we think we've got it figured out. Everybody, thank you for watching.